Welcome, everybody. It's great to see all of you, both those who've been studying with us and those who are joining for the first time. I know we have a small contingency of Tucsoners that either are here or will be joining over the next couple of minutes. I'm always thrilled to be able to come together for Tikvah through text. Of course, the idea here is to find hope in the act of study. And I want to invite you, as we always do, to please put your name and your location into the chat so we can get to know one another, continue to get to know one another. And I'll just mention before welcoming this week's teacher that we have a number of rabbis who will be teaching us over the coming weeks. I'm teaching next week, and then I'll just name a few names: Rabbi Stephanie Crawley, Rabbi Audrey Karatkin, Rabbi Sarah Berman, a number of rabbis. It's really a great opportunity to hear different perspectives on hope in our texts. So I look forward to seeing you in the coming weeks as well. And without any further ado, I'll just turn things right over to Rabbi Malcolm Cohen of Kol Ami Synagogue in Tucson, Arizona. As a fellow Kol Ami rabbi, I feel an affinity with Rabbi Cohen and his congregation, even though we just met for the first time. And I just want to thank him for being here and for teaching us, and turn things right over to you, Rabbi Cohen.
Yeah, thanks so much. You got Stephanie Crawley coming up. She's awesome. You're in for such a treat with her. That's great. Good choice. So I thought we would just start with the blessing for study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, rule the universe, makes us holy with his commands us to engage in words of Torah. So welcome, everybody. So the thing that you have to understand is that there's a melody which goes with this teaching, and it's called the baby bird melody. You'll see why that's relevant. And it's composed by Ali Halpert. So the melody goes like this, and you'll sing at home, and we won't be able to hear everybody's voices together, but you'll at least be able to hear your voice with my voice, and that counts for something. So the baby bird melody goes like this. Ya da 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 ya da ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 da. Try that. Ya da 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 ya da ya da ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 ya da da ya da da ya da 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 da. Part two. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 ya da 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 da. Part one. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 ya da da ya da ya da 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 da. One more time. Ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 da. Okay, so that's the baby bird melody. So I want you to hear the sound of birds in your head, right, as we go through this this text study together, Tikvah through text. And my challenge was to try and connect the fact that today is Tu B'Shvat, the Jewish green nature tree holiday, to the fact that tomorrow night and Saturday is Shabbat Shirah, where we recite and sing the Song of the Sea the Israelites sang as they crossed the Sea of Reeds on dry land. So I'm claiming that we're going to perfectly wrap up the connection between Tu B'Shvat and the Song of the Sea as we go through this, and also give you a bit of hope along the way. I do want to pay tribute to the Rising Song Institute, who not only brought my attention to the melody, but also to this particular text. And so, to the text itself, let me just share it for you on the screen. Here we go. And you'll see that it's a story. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen story anthologies put together by Howard Schwartz. They're always fantastic, and each story is really pithy. There's so much in it. And this is just an extract from one of those stories. So the story goes, it was almost Tu B'Shvat, the new year for trees, when the blessing of the Shechianu is said over the fruit tasted for the first time that year. Right? Shechianu v'kimanu v'gianu lazman hazeh, the blessing that a bunch of us know. So in Zholkiev, it was the middle of a bitter winter. So does anybody know where Zholkiev is? Anyone? What part of the world? What part of the world does it sound like?
The Pale of Settlement.
Right. There's like somewhere in that area, right? It's I believe there's a Zholkiev in Western Ukraine, and then Poland, but I think it's the same place. It's just that the border changed. Okay, so it was a bitter winter in Zholkiev. So you have to have in your mind's eye like the snow, the grey sky, the landscape around it. Everything's covered. There in theory is green stuff under there, but it's just bleak, right? Because if we're doing Tikvah through text, right, we don't start with the Tikvah, with the hope, right? We have to do a bit of work to get there. So right now, that places us in the middle of Zholkiev, in the middle of a bitter winter. So just stay with me in the bleakness for a while, okay? Middle of a bitter winter, not a fruit was to be found that he had already tasted. This is Reb Zalman, right? For this reason, Reb Zalman's spirits were low, for he had nothing with which to make the blessing, and it was his concern to see that no blessing was ignored. So Reb Zalman, this gorgeous soul, has an opportunity. It's Tu B'Shvat. They're in theory a special fruits that you can make a blessing over because it's the first time they've appeared that time of year. But the problem is they haven't appeared. By the way, Reb Zalman, who's Reb Zalman? Anyone want to take a shot at who he is? So Reb Zalman Shachter Shalomi. All right, I think it's probably him. And he was born in Zholkiev, but he became via Chabad actually the inspiration for the renewal movement. So that's also partly why I sang the melody to you at the beginning of the session, because those melodies are floating around. Definitely, they're floating around where Reb Zalman is concerned. And thank you, Rabbi Streifer, that you giving me some Reb Zalman love there in the chat. Okay, so that year, Shabbat Shira came one day before Tu B'Shvat. So the two things, the Tu B'Shvat and Shabbat Shira, where we sing the Song of the Sea, they're always going to be in relationship, close to each other in the year. And Reb Zalman still didn't know where to find a first fruit. He carried his distress with him as he went outside to feed kasha to the birds on the eve of Shabbat Shira. Okay, has anybody ever had the culinary pleasure of kasha? If so, tell me what kasha is. Yes, Carol, unmute yourself and tell me.
It's a very nice grain. I don't know its Latin name, but my mother used to make it often.
Fantastic. Okay, it's a grain. It's like a cereal porridge, maybe. Yes, thank you, Paula. Buckwheat. Yes, it's usually buckwheat, but it doesn't have to be. But that's the thing that usually. Okay, so it's some kind of grain that Reb Zalman's holding in his hand. Okay, and we've got all of these meat cutes with Reb Zalman that we see in the chat. Okay, it's like I saw Elvis once in the supermarket. Okay, okay, everyone's got their Reb Zalman story. I love it. Okay, did you sing with him? Maybe not. Okay, he was probably just going about his business, didn't want to be bothered. Okay, so Reb Zalman still didn't know where to find a first fruit. Carried his distress with him as he went outside to feed kasha to the birds on the eve of Shabbat Shira. Went around to the places where the birds congregate and spread kasha on the ground for them. For this was a minchag, a custom he always followed at this time of year. Around noon that day, Reb Chaim Elia arrived at Reb Zalman's house. By the way, Reb Chaim Elia, I looked him up. He's from a town, again, Ukrainian Polish. I have no idea how to pronounce the name of this town. Buczazz, right? I want to say Bushash or something like that, right? That's the best I've got. But Reb Chaim Elia was from the town that I can't really say it, but it's spelled like I spelled it. He arrived at Reb Zalman's house and found him feeding the birds with tears in his eyes, right? bleak midwinter, no fruits emerging. Tu B'Shvat is on the horizon. Shabbos Shira is on the horizon, but there's nothing to sing about. Okay, this is the state that Reb Zalman is found by Reb Chaim Elia. So, and so as the beginning, so will be the end. You'll see, Chaim Elia wanted to divert Reb Zalman from this sadness. Right now, I'm no therapist. I'm married to one, but I'm no therapist. So I don't know, right, what the right therapeutic tool will be for Reb Chaim Elia to employ in this situation to cheer up and give some kind of tikvah, some hope to Reb Zalman. But the one he's employing is distraction. Okay, so he asked him why he was feeding kasha to the birds. Reb Zalman replied, "It was the bird who reminded the children of Israel of their joy in the crossing of the Red Sea, for they flocked above them singing. This inspired the people to break out in the singing of the song of the sea." Reb Chaim Elia has made a stunning suggestion about the song of the sea. Can anybody tell me what the stunning suggestion is about the birds and the song of the sea? They're going through the sea of reeds on dry land. In theory, it's like a fraught moment. They know the Egyptian army is somewhere there. But what happens? Yes, Susan.
Well, it seems to me that if you're in the sea, you don't hear birds because you're covered with water. But if you are crossing a sea of reeds, which is open land, you will see birds. And also Noah, in his ark, when he saw the dove, realized that there was also hope.
Hold on to the dove, okay? But Susan, what do the birds do as the people are crossing the Sea of Reeds?
They might be leading them, but they're probably singing their songs. They're probably singing what they sang at the beginning.
And not only are they singing, right, the people who are sort of plowing their furrow, right, okay, let's just get through the sea, they hear the birds singing and they sing, right, which in turn becomes the song of the sea, right? So all of this time you thought it was this gorgeous inventions of humans. No, right? The song of the sea was borrowed off nature, specifically the birds that were flying through the air, twittering above the Israelites as they went through the Sea of Reeds. Okay, so the suggestion, I'm not saying this is not scientific. Okay, I don't have any video evidence of this. All right, but the suggestion is that the song of the sea was inspired by the song of the birds above the heads of the Israelites. Okay, wonderful. And again, I want you to hear in your head. Yeah, da, 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 da. Okay, so it was the bird who reminded the children of Israel of their joy in the crossing of the Red Sea. For they flocked above them singing. This inspired the people to break out in the singing of the song of the sea. Therefore, we traditionally thank the birds on this day. Chaim Elia accepted the logic of this at once, but was still curious to know why it was kasha he was feeding them. Okay, so does anybody know the Yiddish phrase which is for 4 questions, manishtana? Anybody? Okay, yeah, go on, Paula Goldberg.
It's the fear kashas.
The fear kashas, the 4 questions, right, is the Yiddish. Absolutely. So kasha is not just this toasted buckwheat, which is made into a cereal or a porridge, but the word implies questions as well. So, and here we go. Remember, Reb Zalman says that the word kasha means a question. Our question is, where are we going to find a fruit over which to make the shechianu? Right? This is not a kasha, a question from Pesach. This is a kasha for Tu B'Shvat, right? Tu B'Shvat is upon us. We want to bless this new fruit emerging, blinking into the sunlight, but we ain't got no fruit, right? That's our kasha. That's our question. Where do we get it? And Chaim Elia said, but is kasha the traditional food? And Reb Zalman replied, only when we cannot find a new fruit. All right, so kasha is not the ideal. It's just the plan B. It's the poor relation of the thing that you have this time of year when you haven't got any gorgeous, juicy fruit. So then Reb Zalman went on feeding the birds, singing the nigun of the song of the sea to himself. Yeah, da, 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 da. The birds, who had been starving, were as happy to see the kasha as were the Israelites to receive manna from heaven. It's pretty happy. And after they'd fed themselves, some of the birds began to repeat the nigun. Yeah, da, 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 da. At first, Reb Zalman and Chaim Elia thought they were imagining that the birds were singing that song, but in truth it happened, and they were both astonished. Chaim Elliott turned to Reb Zalman at once and said, this singing in the very same nigun by the words is itself a miracle and a sign. Okay, so he's feeding them kasha. The birds are singing. And what he's created is this incredible feedback loop, right? What was the original song of the sea? Who started singing first? Can anybody remind me, according to the earlier part of the story?
Moses or Miriam, depending what you believe.
Before even them, according to what I said earlier, this half hour.
The birds.
The
Not
birds, the boys. Okay, the birds were the ones who did it. They induced, in turn, the Israelites to sing the song. And then all these centuries later, in bleak midwinter Zholkiev, right, we get it the other way round. The beautiful melody that's been passed over the centuries, Reb Zalman is singing it, and that in turn, and the feedback loop, gets the birds to once be reminded of the inspiration they originally gave the humans. So the birds feeding the humans, who much later, the humans remind the birds of their original inspiration, and nature is coming alive on that basis. Now we're going to get to the dove, though. We're going to get to the dove, right? So the singing of the very same nigun, miracle and a sign. The sign is that you mustn't give up hope that the first fruit will arrive, right? Everything might be covered in snow. You might be in the middle of winter in Poland, in Zholkiev, right? Not like sunny Tucson outside my window. This is Zholkiev. You can hear the bleakness in the sound of the name. When Reb Zalman heard this, his eyes grew bright again and a smile returned to his face. It was apparent to all he hadn't given up hope. All that day, Reb Zalman hummed the nigun of the sea, okay? That night he slept peacefully while his sleep up till then had been fitful. When he awoke the next morning, when it was Shabbat Shira, he felt as if his soul had just returned from a long journey, as if he himself had crossed the parted waters of the Red Sea. So this wonderful rejuvenation. And so, you know, have in your mind, it's not just that the Poland, you know, maybe Poland will come alive, maybe the first fruits will emerge, but also there's a complete rejuvenation, and the shoots of recovery and hope are emerging in Reb Zalman himself after he gets up from that sleep and he thinks, okay, maybe there is right, some rays of sunshine. That morning, oh, sorry, all day he hummed the nigun of the sea. Yeah, sorry, that morning, here we go. When Reb Zalman opened the door and he looked outside, he saw a dove flying from afar, right? We got the dove. I promise you the dove. I'm fulfilling my promise. And he thought to himself, why is it the voice of the dove is so sad? Is it not, as the sages say, because the Shekhinah, the divine presence, mourns with a sigh? So for those of you who don't know this idea, but the Shekhinah is the aspect of God that is closest to the human realm. And indeed, our sages tell us that when the Jewish people go through tough times, the Shekhinah is also in mourning. When we go into exile outside the land of Israel, when the Babylonians and the Romans take us out, then the Shekhinah dwells with us in exile. And so is it not, as the sages say, because the Shekhinah mourns with a sigh? That's why the dove is so sad. But when the Messiah comes, then will our tongue be full of song. So too, when the Shekhinah will no longer mourn, will the dove sing more sweetly than the nightingale. Just then, the dove landed on a branch of a nearby tree, and that's when Reb Zalman thought it was golden. The light of its feathers radiated in the sun, and in its beak was an olive branch. Okay, now, I don't know about you, right? But where do you have any sense of olive trees? Where do they normally grow? Where do they grow, people? Come on. No
Here.
horticulturalists here?
They grow
Land.
here.
Right? Tucson, and I heard another voice, Bob.
Jerusalem.
Right? Jerusalem, right? They grow in like much, much hotter places, right? Much more
Around the
fertile than
Mediterranean.
that part of winter. Someone say, what did you say?
Around the Mediterranean.
Around the Mediterranean, fantastic, right? South of where he is. Now, Reb Zalman could not believe his eyes when he saw that dove and what it carried, for he knew no such dove existed in this world, and that no, that's meant to read olives. No, oh, there's an extra O. No, olives, right here, grew in Poland in the winter, and that the golden dove must have brought them from very far. And suddenly Reb Zalman knew that the birds had heard his plea, and that the Holy One, blessed be he, had replied to his prayer. So you have not only this gorgeous song of the birds, which has been carried down from the centuries. It's originally the birds who sang it, but when Reb Zalman repeats it, the birds are brought back to life and are reminded of their own song. But then the birds are coming mop-handed. Now the dove gets involved and brings yet another sign of help and hope that the winter is almost at its end, with this olive branch, which has no business being in that part of Poland at that time of year. And so Reb Zalman, if the first sign of the birds responding in song wasn't enough, then the dove should really seal the deal. There's no point in leaning into his seasonal affective mood syndrome, right? He needs to snap out of it, right? Give me a sign. Like, he got at least 2 strong signs, so he should listen to those signs. Yes, Susan Kaplan.
Well, while the olive branch is a more modern phrase that we use for making peace or trying to make peace, in this case, I think Reb Zalman is experiencing peace because of what all of this has transpired. And here is this dove with the olive branch, and he thinks, oh my, back to Noah and whatnot, and we're all connected. And I think he's peaceful.
Yeah, absolutely is. And by the way, even though we made the connection with Shabbat Shirah and the Song of the Sea, let's just go back to Tu B'Shvat, because that's the day. And so what I'm trying to suggest, and I hope some of you will respond in the affirmative and sort of endorse what I'm suggesting. I'd love to hear examples from you. There's a sense, at least one of the things that you can do when when you have a sense of bleakness, at least one of the things, if you're able to, is to go out and find solace in nature and connect to a particular aspect of nature that inspires you. Now, this is a very, very clear idea in our tradition. So Rebbe Nachman, the famous Hasidic leader, was famous for explaining, he used to say that all nature talks to you, right? He used to talk about the shepherd, that the shepherd knew the melody of every single blade of grass that he surveyed while he was shepherding his flock. Rebbe Nachman used to say that you shouldn't read the Hebrew phrase as siach hasadeh, the growth of the field. You should read it as sicha hasadeh, the conversation of the field, as in nature is talking to you all the time. If you would only listen, it would give you solace, it would give you connection, it would give you hope. So I'd really like to break in our last couple of minutes. When I'm having to use the sing and ask questions, great. That wouldn't hurt none as well, right? To bring solace. But just where I am in Tucson, if I've had to use the London parlance, a crappy day, then I go walk my dog. I see the saguaros and the cacti and the sunset and the Catalina foothills behind them, and it just lifts me. And I'm in a sikha, I'm in a conversation with the environment around me, and it brings me up. We'd love to hear from maybe some people either in the chat or unmuted who haven't spoken. I'd love to hear from folks about the conversation they have with nature. Which parts of nature inspire you and bring you tikvah, bring you hope? I'd love to hear from some other folks.
I have a thought, if it's okay.
Please, very well.
I sometimes, when I feel up for it, I get up and walk the dogs in the morning. I hate getting up early, but once I'm out there in the dark watching the sunrise, it just transforms my world. Seeing the sunrise every morning feels like an incredible moment of connection with the world and with God and with myself and with something larger.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, Carol.
Well, I'm finding this fascinating. I happen to be an avid bird watcher.
Oh, great.
And the first thing I do in the morning is check to see what's around my yard and if my feeders are up, what's at the feeders. And so I'm really enjoying this. So that's my immediate attachment.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, that's
other-
great. And listen, by the way, Carol, just because the birds are singing to you doesn't mean you can't sing back, right? Is what we've learned as well. Carry on, carry on. Carol, carry on. Sorry. Oh,
I'm sorry.
oh, okay. Oh, yeah, Carol. It sounded like you had one more thing to say. That's why I went back to you.
Yes, I did. Don't forget tonight's full moon.
Okay.
That's the
Okay,
other
fantastic.
thing. That every month.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, fantastic, Carol. Yes, Paula.
So the thing that always uplifts me, especially if it's been really raining or something, as the rain sort of eases off a little, two things. Number one is the rainbow, obviously. I take pictures of every rainbow every time I see one.
Sure.
Another opportunity to say a blessing.
Yeah.
And in addition, in where I live, there's a lot of trees and little areas where the water pools. And as soon as I see the rainbow, I also see birds bathing, flapping, and joyfully frittering around in the water that has come down. So it is just, nature is really incredible. And
Yeah.
the beauty of the rainbow and the joy of the birds just having
Yeah.
such a wonderful time from the rain, which often is a little bit, pulling you down, but they're out there.
Yeah, they're loving it. They're loving it. Fantastic. Thank you very much. We've got time for a couple more. Yes, Alfred.
Rainbows, birds, rainbows, sunrises, and the sea. The sea and rivers, my whole life, I find peace and solace when I'm on the water. And I'm lucky to be able to spend time near the ocean several months a year.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I see also in the chat, right, Robert says, right, Rainbow, right, the crows bring hope as they did to Elijah and to Odin. Susan's digging in the dirt. Okay, nice, lovely. Lauren, we're going to end with you before we sing finally.
I think poetically, when you read a text like this,
Yeah,
it's the conclusion, it's the light of the realization that brings you joy. And so for me, always it's kind of interwoven throughout the comments here, going outside and seeing the concert of what light offers is for me the pinnacle of enjoyment. And so as it is in the text, when you reach that point where all of a sudden the realization
absolutely.
comes that it's illuminating. So
yeah. No, that's fantastic, Lauren. And also, by the way, that winter landscape, that doesn't mean it's it doesn't mean it's bleak and there's no inspiration in there, right? Often it's just wait a second, things will emerge. Okay. So on that basis, on the basis of the original melody of the Song of the Sea, which was inspired by the birds, then let's sing one more time the melody composed by Ali Halpert called the Baby Bird Nigun as follows. Ya da 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 ya da ya da ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da da ya da da ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 da. Thanks so much, everybody, for singing and learning with me. Really appreciate. Hope brought you a little bit of Tikvah.